Imagine Rome at the height of its power, a sprawling empire, grand monuments, legendary legions, and at its very center, one man, Augustus Caesar, the first emperor. His name echoes through history, synonymous with power, peace, and the golden age of Rome. But what if I told you that this legendary figure, this architect of an empire, was once a frail, sickly teenager, constantly underestimated, mocked, and living in the shadow of his great-uncle, the mighty Julius Caesar? This isn't just a story about a famous emperor. It's a story about how quiet strength, unwavering discipline, and incredible patience can forge greatness from the most unlikely of beginnings. This is the story of how Octavian, the boy nobody took seriously, became Augustus, the man who would change the world forever. When Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, Rome was plunged into chaos. The Republic was tearing itself apart. Powerful men like Mark Antony and the senators who had killed Caesar were all vying for control. And then, a name few people recognized appeared on the scene, Gaius Octavius, or as we know him, Octavian. He was just 18 years old, physically weak, and often ill. He had no military experience, no political clout, and his own mother begged him to stay away from the viper's pit of Roman politics. Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man and a battle-hardened general, openly mocked him. He called him the boy and dismissed him as a non-threat. To everyone, Octavian was just a pawn, a name to be used and discarded. But they all made one critical mistake. They underestimated him. While Antony and the others postured and battled for immediate glory, Octavian played a different game. He inherited Caesar's name and immense fortune, but more importantly, he inherited his great-uncle's strategic mind. Instead of charging headfirst into battles he couldn't win, he was patient. He listened. He learned. He knew he couldn't match Antony's military might or the Senate's political influence directly, so he worked in the shadows. He used his inherited wealth to pay Caesar's legions, winning their loyalty not through brute force, but through reliability and fulfilling promises. This was his first masterstroke. He understood that in Rome, loyalty was a currency, and he was quickly becoming the richest man in town. Octavian's genius was his ability to turn his weaknesses into strengths. He wasn't a great general, so he found the best one in Rome, Marcus Agrippa. Agrippa became his lifelong friend and military arm, a brilliant commander who won the battles that Octavian planned. He wasn't a powerful orator like Cicero or Antony, so he spoke carefully, chose his words with precision, and focused on building alliances behind the scenes. He formed the second triumvirate with his rivals Antony and Lepidus, not because he trusted them, but because it was a necessary step. It was a temporary truce that allowed him to consolidate his power while his enemies fought amongst themselves. He was always playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, thinking 3 moves ahead. Think about the discipline this required. Imagine being 19 or 20, with all the resources in the world, surrounded by people who either want to kill you or use you. The temptation to lash out, to prove yourself, must have been immense. But Octavian remained calm, calculated. He endured the insults. He swallowed his pride when necessary. He allowed Antony to take the glamorous East with Egypt and its queen, Cleopatra. While he took on the difficult, thankless task of restoring order in Italy, it looked like a bad deal. But Octavian knew that the heart of the empire was Rome itself. By securing the grain supply, settling veterans, and bringing stability back to the Italian peninsula, he was winning the hearts and minds of the Roman people. They saw Antony living a decadent life in a foreign land, while Octavian was at home, solving their problems. This long game eventually led to the final confrontation. The relationship between Octavian and Mark Antony finally fractured. Octavian, now a master of propaganda, painted Antony as a puppet of the foreign queen Cleopatra. Someone who had abandoned his Roman heritage, he cleverly obtained Antony's will and read it to the Senate, revealing Antony's plans to be buried in Egypt and grant Roman territories to his children with Cleopatra. This was the final straw for the Roman people. It wasn't just a power struggle anymore, it was a battle for the soul of Rome, and Octavian had positioned himself as its one true defender. The decisive clash came in 31 BC at the naval battle of Actium. Once again, Octavian wasn't on the front lines commanding the fleet. That was Agrippa's job. Octavian was the strategist, the political mastermind who had made the battle possible. With Antony and Cleopatra's defeat, Octavian's last rival was gone. He stood alone, the undisputed master of the Roman world. But even then, he didn't make the same mistake his great-uncle did. Julius Caesar had declared himself dictator for life, an act that led to his assassination. Octavian learned from this. He knew Romans hated the idea of a king. So, in 27 BC, in a brilliant display of political theater, he went before the Senate and announced he was returning all his powers, restoring the Republic. It was a genius move. The senators, many of whom owed their positions and lives to him, were terrified of the chaos that would follow his departure. They begged him to stay. They showered him with honors and titles. They gave him the name Augustus, meaning the revered one. And they granted him the very powers he had just offered to give up. But now, it was under the guise of the Republic. He never called himself a king or emperor. He simply called himself princeps, or first citizen. He maintained the illusion of the old Republic with a Senate and magistrates, while holding all the real power himself. He had won the war, and now he had masterfully won the peace. The reign of Augustus ushered in 2 centuries of relative peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. He reformed the army, rebuilt the city of Rome, sponsored art and literature, and created a stable government that would endure for generations. The frail boy who was once mocked became the architect of an empire, not through loud boasts or flashy victories, but through quiet determination, relentless discipline, and a patience that outlasted all his enemies. The story of Augustus is a powerful lesson. It teaches us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet, consistent effort that wins the day. It's the ability to control your emotions, to play the long game, and to trust in your own strategy even when everyone else doubts you. Augustus Caesar didn't just build an empire of marble. He built an empire founded on the principle that true power lies not in being the loudest voice in the room, but in being the most patient and strategic mind. He proved that even from the most fragile beginnings, a legacy that lasts for millennia can be forged. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story of quiet strength inspiring, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into history's most fascinating lives. Let me know in the comments which historical figure's hidden story you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.